Welcome to the MS&Me Radio Network, a division of the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network. The following program broadcast is an original creation by the broadcast entity. Discussion within the following broadcast should be used for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or consultation. Before considering application of any broadcast content in the following program, please consult your healthcare provider. If you feel you are having a medical emergency, please contact your local health services for immediate assistance. MS&Me Media and the Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network do not guarantee or warrant the accuracy of information in the broadcast to follow. The Multiple Sclerosis Global Support Network provisions broadcast services to program hosts. Information discussed in the broadcast does not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or goals of the network and are solely those of the show broadcast host. Should you wish to host a broadcast, please visit our website at msmemedia.com and submit a request to become a program host. We thank you for listening to the MS&Me Radio Network. Enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome back to Ugly Like Me on MS&Me Radio, powered by the MS Global Support Network. Big shout out to our friends like Erica Lyons Richardson and Ted and Cynthia and all the wonderful people on the other side who make this work. This is a 24/7 MS and disease awareness network, and mad props to the people who make it work. If you're in the United States and you live somewhere near New York City, mad props just means like praise be to you for doing all the good that you do. Now, just so you know, I've taped about 4 versions of this show today, realizing that, I went over the time. I kept wondering why am I still at 10 minutes? And I realized that that was the time of the day, not how long I had been recording. So I actually got the last one, where I wanted it to be, and I realized it stopped recording. So not cool. So I'm a little bit tired. And you know what? Do you ever watch somebody like a comedian drink something and you're like, why do they need a glass of water every 10 minutes? Or I'll watch a talk show host with everybody's got mugs and they drink out of them. I get it now. I totally get it. And I'm gonna drink right now. Wow, somebody's riding a motorcycle. Good for them. I hope the wind is in their hair. So, really quick, I just want to give it, maybe this is an apology. Michael Wentink, a life less traveled on MS&Me Radio. Wentink is his name, not Wentic. And I keep calling you Wentic, Michael, and you never yell at me. Like, why don't you yell at me? You could have corrected me like 3 times and you haven't. So thank you for being so gracious. And I know that you're in Texas, dealing with the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. I'm also the brand ambassador for Newzil compression socks, and they are located in Katy, Texas. And they've also been really affected by the hurricane. And personally, on a personal level, that's where they live and work, and their families are. That's where they grow, and everything is there. And, instead of really focusing on themselves, they sent out 1,000 volunteers to hand out dry compression socks to those in need. And I'm so blessed and so honored to be part of your family. So my love to EJ and Brian down there. And right now I'm wearing rainbow colored ones. Funny story about that. I don't really represent anything. As a writer, you find that people try to send you stuff, and then I feel unethical about writing about it, especially if I wouldn't really try it out anyway. But people will just give you free stuff or like invite you to movie premieres. And I'm like, I don't belong at a movie premiere. I think you misunderstood what I write about. So I don't go to those things. But Newzil, what happened with them was, my husband, Tony, and I were on the couch and we were watching like The Fall, probably on Netflix. And I had a dress on, but my feet were so cold. And it's a spinal cord injury thing. Like right now, it's aligned with spinal cord injury, where the lesions are and how many there are. So my feet, I can't feel them, but at the same time, they feel so cold. So the best thing I can do for them is to wear compression socks. They're very good. Like if you get varicose veins from having children, standing too much, you're not getting enough blood down there. If you're diabetic, there's so many reasons why people should own compression socks, but I was really mortified that he's a cyclist. He's like this avid rad cyclist. So he's always on a bike, and after to heal, to regroup, he has to put on the compression socks. But they're kind of old, and I'm kind of tiny. He's much bigger than me. And so he was putting them on, and they had like balled up, when things get old, you get the little balled up balls of cloth on them almost. And he put them on me, and I was like, I took a video of it because it was sort of a beautiful moment, yet an ugly moment. Like it was juxtaposed against these ugly socks. And I was kind of bitching about Newsill on Instagram. I posted a video of Tony putting them on me, and I was like, ugh, this is so unsexy. And they wrote me, like EJ just started talking to me, and I thought that he would be like a community manager, which is somebody who's paid to watch sites, social media sites, like 24/7 and respond politely. Usually they're thought out, agreed upon legal statements. So I thought I was talking to one of those people, but I was actually talking to the vice president of the company, and we became really close friends. And I told him, I don't want to feel like I'm wearing a bandage or like I should be in a hospital room. I kind of want to feel sexy, even if I have to wear compression socks. And he was like, well, what are your ideas? Tell me your ideas. And then he sent me a rainbow pair, which are awesome. And then I was asked, this was organically, like, then he'd send me like videos like, woo, it's Monday, let's go Monday. And he'd get me to do my planks or something. And very organic, natural relationship. And then they asked me to be a brand ambassador. So, and I'm in good company because I think the other two, I'm sorry that I forget their names, but they're fencers, Olympic fencers for the United States. So I'm in good company. And EJ and Brian, I just want you to know in my Newsill family that you sent me rainbow when I was pretty sad about wearing white socks. So I'm sending you a rainbow to Texas after the storms and the aftermath. There's always a rainbow after the storm, and you guys are certainly showing it. I'm proud to be associated with you. So today's show is about depression, and I think this was spurred off by the fall. So I'm watching Fall, the series, because I just couldn't stop watching it. I didn't realize there was a new season out. It's on Netflix, but if you're in like the UK in that area, it's on BBC. BBC Two? Here in the United States, we have 1,000 channels and everybody complains there's nothing on. I think you guys have maybe 4. Am I right? 3? I don't know. Write me and tell me. I don't know. But you're on there. I mean, it's on there. So I'm pretty sure it's everywhere. But I've been watching that, and I've also been watching the summer sort of unfold. And everybody's kids have gone back to school except for mine. And it's funny, I said to my friend, you know that summer's over for you when you make your kids mashed potatoes and corn for breakfast. That is what my son asked for breakfast. And not even the cool mashed potatoes where like I would have to peel potatoes and mash them, with fun stuff. No, he wanted instant mashed potatoes with a can of corn, which has no nutritional value. And I had no fight in me. So I knew then I'm so ready for the fall. And I love the fall. I love the fall. It's a TV series. I love the fall. The season. I love the smell of pumpkin. Pumpkin is infused into everything in the United States. I don't know if it is where you are, but they put pumpkin in like coffees and lattes and bread. But then it gets a little too far. It's like, I've got pumpkin water. I've got pumpkin pants. I've got pumpkin hair. I don't know. Pumpkin colored hair. It seems like it's a little too much. I only like the smell of the pumpkin. I'm not a big fan of the pumpkin coffee. If I could eat pumpkin bread, I would, because it's more carby and cakey to me, and I can't eat that on my MS diet. So to me, I'd probably chow that down just because it's more like a cake. But but the important thing is, I get very nostalgic in the fall, but other people get very depressed. And they know whether they have MS or not, some people get seasonal depression disorder. and it's very real. And it happens, I'm actually not sure about the stats of the seasonal one, but I know that 50 to 70, I'm being actually very cautious with the stats. I've read stats that were higher. Like some said 85 and 90% of people with MS through the course of their MS in their lives would be depressed at one moment or another. And that's pretty high. I know a guy, and I can only remember this because you'll see how my cognitive impairment presents as you listen to me on the radio. You'll see how the word recall sort of escapes me, but then it'll come back. Or I can veer off point, and then I realize I'm veering off points, and I can't remember the point. So just bear with me. You'll see. But I feel like I can remember things if I see them. Like if I have a visual, like a cool visual or a cool font, I can recall the visual in my head, and then I can remember the person. So that's why I remember this. T. Feinstein. I don't know if it's Feinstein. I don't know if it's Ted, but I want to say Ted Feinstein. He put, I was reading some scholarly journal. It was like multiple sclerosis. It was just MS and depression, basically. I don't think there was like a fancy name. But he put it at 50%. And that felt way, way low. You know, in the 10 years that I've been writing about this, it's been from like, I've read probably from 70 to 95%. So, you know, you've got to do your own research. Knowledge is power, and it'll help you in your healing. You need to know what to do. Knowing is half the battle, in the words of G.I. Joe. So, you know, do your own investigations, learn who to trust, who are the more credible people, who are the more sensationalized, the ones that want you to feel fear. Just know that 98% of people with MS live long lives with the same life expectancy as people without any chronic illness. So know that stat. Don't believe in the sensationalized, scary ones, because that will only add to the depression. Okay. Now, the first thing you need to know about depression is that it's an emotional state, but it's really an umbrella. Okay. And with MS, you've got two types. You have the biological, organic depression, and then you have the situational or environmental depression. The first one is, it depends on lesions in the brain. So you can have many lesions in your brain, and it's not necessarily indicative of a certain prognosis. It doesn't mean you're doomed. There's room in there for error, for some more than others. That was sort of a diss. I think it just called some people dumb, but that was just a joke. You could have 40, but there's room for error. You know, it depends on where they are. So we don't have to worry in that way, but in another way, we need to worry that if we're sad for longer than 2 weeks, do we have a lesion that's affecting a certain part of the brain that is responsible for releasing happy chemicals, like serotonin? So I might have a lesion in a part of the brain that affects serotonin. And lesions are not tumors. People ask me that a lot. Like, why don't you just get them removed? They're more like scarring, like a scarring over. So think of our nerves like wires, and then you have the myelin sheath over it, right? And that sort of stays there to make sure that it conducts. It's like a conduit. I might not be using that term correctly, but it helps the signals get through to the parts of the body it needs to get through. With a lesion in MS, it's like a scar, like it goes into it, sort of digs in it and bubbles over it, and it just messes up the signals. So you can be experiencing a biological depression or an organic, some people call it an organic depressive moment, whatever. But for that, you would absolutely need to go to a doctor and tell them. But I'll get into like how to deal and cope with those things later. The second type is situational. And that's like with all the things that come with having a chronic illness. Now, having a chronic illness sucks. Like, people think that it's this big boom Like, I'm the coyote in the old cartoon where I'm running and I get hit by an anvil. It's not. It's almost slow going and you lose things like at a slow pace. But like, not just like you losing things like cars and homes and things like that, but like losing your ability to control your life and the wellness in your life. Like, I would just get sick and I had no more vacation days, and they would take like $200 out, which was a lot of money to me per day that I was sick, and sometimes I would be sick for 2 weeks at a time. So the amount of money that was coming out of my paychecks was like unreal, and it was affecting every part of my life, including how my husband acted. He was incredibly stressed. Could we pay our mortgage? Could we pay the cars? Could we afford to stay where we were? I mean, and then it affects everything. And it also affects how you behave and react to people. It's very hard to be kind and jovial when you're in pain 24/7. And that like as life goes on, like you're not going to get a baby or publish a novel. You're going to get like, well, me, quadriplegia. Like, woohoo? Is that a trophy? That's not something that is easy to live with 24/7 every day, and to just feel it more and more every day. So I think I've had to really learn how to cope with that and sort of circumvent it in my life, because if I thought about that all the time, I'd be seriously depressed. And some people just can't at that point in the course of their MS get around it. It's very hard, and that's why you need to know coping strategies. You need to put certain things in place to get around it, because sometimes we just can't do it on our own, and that's okay. There was a time when, I think I read it in the Feinstein article about where admitting depression was such a weakness. Like, you wouldn't do that. So many people don't, especially men. Men are statistically less likely to admit that they are depressed. And I just want you to know that it's in keeping with the theme of Ugly Like Me. It's not ugly if you bring it to light. If you bring it to light and you learn from it, you learn how to fix it. There's almost always a way to fix it. And if you bring it to light and you fix it, and then you teach somebody else how to fix it, like, what a gift. So you're not just surviving, you're helping other people survive. You're also saving lives. So please don't think that you need to be quiet. Don't think that people are going to mock you, or that it's not biological or situational. They're very real. Either way, they're super real and they're super life-threatening. And I have lost friends to it, and it was terrible, and I don't want to go through it again. And I'm sure that your loved ones don't want to go through it. So you need to learn to be proactive. Okay, once you're in it, it's really hard to get out. You need to create a support system with certain signals, like certain things you tend to do when you're in a depressive state. Like, for me, if I'm really depressed, I'm indifferent to everything. Like, I won't eat anything, I won't shower. It's very hard to get me to move off of the couch. I'll tend to put the same thing on Netflix on repeat. So, but the one thing I do know, and it's almost innate and it comes out of me now, is that I write down certain things, and I always date it because I know that I forget. And it's just like this innate natural reflex, because if I do that, I can communicate what I was thinking, what I was feeling when. And like I said, I have terrible MS memory fog, cognitive whatever's happening. So it really helps to communicate to people, and they can reach out and help you and let people help you. I think that's probably like the hardest part, especially for men in more hierarchical places. It's very hard to admit that you have a disease because you need help. So whether it's MS, you won't talk about it, or whether it's the diseases that sort of come within MS, and depression being one of them. It's very hard for some people to ask for help. I was brought up in a family that didn't talk about those things. We just didn't. So I'm not sure what really taught me. Maybe it's my faith and being spiritual. Maybe it's me being a writer and then sharing my writing. So then I was communicating, but I'm not sure where I got that from. But I have to share it to heal, and it also sends out a signal for help. And sometimes you can't help yourself when you're way too in it. So you need to know that. 2 questions you need to ask yourself. This was from the National MS Society. It can be really one question. It's ask yourself if it's been 2 weeks or longer. They didn't put the or longer in the National MS Society. If it's 2 weeks or longer that you felt hopeless, depressed, or really like in indifference like me. I get indifferent, and I'm somebody who's full of wonder and stirred by everything, and I find everything beautiful. So I know that if I'm indifferent, I don't want to eat, I don't want to shower, don't want to move, I disconnect from my family, that I'm in it. And if it happens longer than 2 weeks, I sort of have people on guard all the time. And my doctors, it's funny, if I think of my support system, I have my husband and my sister, Stacy, who also has MS. But the rest of them are my doctors. Like, my doctors are my friends, whether they're my Western doctors, my chiropractic care doctor, or my acupuncturists. They're all like sort of my support system that, they know when I'm in it. They can see. They can tell by my dirty hair that like somebody needs to help me. And it's typically my husband who will encourage me to go to my Western doctor to talk to, because he's my MS specialist. He's like the head honcho of all my doctors. So you need to really put that in place. Another thing, before you're in a depressive state, you really need to try to exercise, because it will release happy chemicals in your brain. So even if it's misfiring and mistriggering, something is done in there. And even emotionally, like, you feel an empowerment, like you can do something. So I tend to do planks a lot with my family, and we do like plank challenges, and we record them and put them on YouTube. But anything, like especially yoga or meditation. Yoga, I can't even do a tree pose without falling over, but I can adapt it with certain things. And it doesn't matter how advanced, the pose is. I can always adapt it, and at the same time, it works on my core and it helps me with my balance. I cannot balance for shiz. Like, I swear, I live in a new house and probably all of my neighbors think I'm drunk 24/7. The other house is more of a community. So, we'd have block parties and things like that. And if I was sick, people would bring dinner. Like, for 2 months, they set up a website. I think it's called Meal Train, actually. They used a website to make sure that my family was brought dinner every day for 2 months because I was sick. So there, they understood. So they might see me going out, like there was about a year and a half I would have to leave to go do my book, and they'd see me, but I'd be stumbling, kind of walk a little funny. Here, they must just think I'm wasted all the time and I'm an unfit mother. I have no idea what they think of me. One of my best favorite quotes, and I'm sticking with it, is it's none of my business what other people think of me. So I'm going to stick with that so I don't get too caught up on it. So my point, though, you need to do exercise. You really, really do. You need to tell your doctor. You need to talk to your support system. You need to understand there's no shame in it. And you know what? There's probably wow, that was so enunciated in such a weird way. There's probably a very high chance, if you're depressed and you have MS, there's probably a good chance that somebody else in your family will have it too. You're hard pressed to find any article that doesn't mention a hereditary component of this disease. And it's funny, almost 10 years ago when I was diagnosed, there was no hereditary component. They kept saying, but your sister Stacy has it, but your first cousin Gloria has it. Like, that would be like lightning hitting the same place 3 times. And I wish I knew this fact, and I'm going to tell you now. Lightning is more likely to strike the same place 3 times. I wish I knew that. So it turns out I did have it, and I had a very different form of it. So my point being that if you have MS and you're struggling with depression from it, chances are your offspring, somebody you're related to, is going to have the same thing. And you really need to live by example. Show them that adversity is what makes us strong. Show them that there's no shame in getting help and being honest in how you feel. It's okay to fall and let somebody, oh, there's fall again, another part of our theme. It's okay to fall and let somebody else pick you up. Okay? And I think that's adapting. That's survival of the fittest. I don't see why that's seen as weak. But that's why I always let my children see my disease. I speak it. I let them see me write. They can listen to my radio shows. I wrote them a book about it because I mean it. I want them to know that this is what's going to make them. Adversity is what makes us strong. It sort of defines our character, and our grace. And I want them to see when I'm gone. I want them to remember what I did if they're in the same situation. So if you're depressed, think about what I said and think about the people who love you. It is a life-threatening situation. Think about the two types. Tell your doctors. There are support groups online and offline. People are watching, especially younger people. There are, what is an international... I'm going to look this up real quick for you. I used to know it by heart because it was a name. And of course I can't type because I'm being listened to. International Suicide. Why is that not in there? Search engines suck. Okay, International Suicide Hotline. I'm not going to read you the rates because I don't want you to know the rates. I just want you to know what to call. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is what it's called. If you're in the United States, is 1-800-273-8255. Now, there's also an international suicide hotline, and you can find them by going to suicide.org. Okay? If you have crazy thoughts, you want to hurt yourself, you're not yourself, make sure your support systems are in place. Really, you got to really know when the red flags are up, okay? And if you don't have a support system, because some of us don't, then re-listen to this on YouTube or wherever they post it and know that you're loved and you're alive, and we wouldn't be the same without you. So you can get through it. You just have to trust that you'll get through it. Again, it was such a blessing to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for listening to Ugly Like Me. There are no words, for the people who spend their lives advocating for the ill and who go and they make an international MS network, radio network, for people like us so we can communicate and make life a little better. So just a big shout out to all my friends there and to all my friends who are listening. Thank you so much. The first broadcast was a little scary, but it actually went pretty well. And again, it's just an honor. God bless you. This is Ugly Like Me. I'm out. Oh, wait. And you can write me at velocitygirl without an I. So velocitygrl@msn.com. Or you can find me on Twitter. My handle is @Jamie, Jamie, Ugly Like Me. Or you can find me on Instagram. No graphic nudie shots. This is a family-friendly show. Kids get MS too. And that's just Jamie, Jamie, capital U, Titus. Keep that clean, but I would love to hear from you. All right, God bless.